A very rare event has taken place in Ukraine. Rick, as a volunteer, was presented with an official patch and flag of the Ukrainian Special Operation Forces. A truly exceptional moment. Unfortunately, rules and traditions don't allow him to raffle off official items like these. But this case is unique, something I've never seen before. A soldier from the Special Operation Forces personally gave Rick his own patch. This SOF soldier had slightly modified the design and color of the original patch and had it custom made just for himself. As you can see, it differs a bit from the official SOF patch. This distinction made it possible to hold the raffle. This makes the rarity of this artifact even greater. Not only will you own a patch from a Special Operation Forces soldier, but it's also a one-of-a-kind item made exclusively for a single person on this planet. Moreover, this very patch was attached to the soldier's body armor over his heart during the battles near Bakhmut in 2022. It carries the dust, gunpowder, and grit of the Russian-Ukrainian war. After the start of the Russian-Ukrainian war in 2014, it became clear that Ukraine needed professional forces capable of unconventional, covert, and sabotage operations. In 2016, following the example of NATO special units, primarily those of the United States, the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces were established. Their formation was supported by instructors from the US Green Berets and Navy SEALs, as well as specialists from the United Kingdom, Canada, and Poland. In 2017, the insignia and uniforms of the Ukrainian Special Operation Forces were developed. In my opinion, they have the most stylish ceremonial and everyday military uniform in Ukraine. Within just a few years, Ukraine's SOF transitioned to NATO standards of training, command, and coordination. Their organizational structure is modeled after the US Special Operations Command. With a new doctrine completely free from post-Soviet influence and built on modern approaches, the Ukrainian SOF quickly became an exceptionally powerful force in defending the country. Over the years, they've gained real combat experience, not against insurgents or weak armies, but against one of the largest militaries of a nuclear power. This kind of experience is unique to Ukraine's Special Operation Forces. Because of this, they have become some of the most capable special forces in the world. Today, Ukrainian operations can even teach their American counterparts. True, there aren't any movies about them yet, but once their missions are declassified, I'm sure Hollywood will have endless inspiration for new stories. Now let's take a look at the flag of the Ukrainian Special Operation Forces. In a semicircle, you can see a wreath of silver laurel leaves, a classical element of military heraldry symbolizing victory, honor, and glory. It emphasizes success in special operations. At the center, you might think you see a wolf, but it's actually a werewolf, a mythical creature representing a human who can transform into a wolf. This is a very ancient myth, likely dating back to Indo-European times, and it exists among many cultures across the world. The father of history, the Greek historian Herodotus, in the mid-5th century before Christ, described the Nuri, a people who lived in what is now northern Ukraine, as follows. It may be that these people are wizards, for the Scythians and the Greeks settled in Scythia say that once a year every one of the Nuri becomes a wolf for a few days and changes back again to his former shape. Those who tell this tale do not convince me, but they tell it nonetheless and swear to its truth. These legends have survived through the centuries and live on this day. In the past, I told you about the legendary Cossack warlord and Kharacternik Ivan Sirko, who, according to legend, could turn into a wolf and scout enemy positions under the cover of night before battle. This mysterious ability to infiltrate deep behind enemy lines perfectly matches what Ukraine's special operation forces actually do today. That's why they placed the werewolf at the center of their flag. If you look closely, you'll notice a strange belt around the werewolf's waist. This is the golden belt tied in a knot, a traditional projective knot or amulet. It symbolizes the transformation of a warrior, the ability to change, to adapt, and to remain unseen. The motif comes from ancient Cimmerian and Scythian traditions, and later from the Carpathian warrior belts known as chersy. Today, you can still see this type of belt as part of the traditional clothing worn by Ukrainians living in the Carpathian Mountains in western Ukraine. This belt is often depicted on the clothing of Kharacterniks, legendary Cossack warriors believed to possess supernatural abilities. Now let's take another look at the flag. At the bottom we can see a bident, the double-pronged trident-like symbol that also appears on the SOF patch. This is the personal mark of Sviatoslav the Brave, ruler of Kyivan Rus in the 10th century. The official title of the rulers of Kyivan Rus was Veliki Knyaz Kyivsky, Grand Knyaz of Kyiv. The word knyaz came into the Slavic language from the Vikings of Scandinavia, where rulers were called konung. That term derives from the Proto-Germanic kuningas, which in modern English became the word king. Sviatoslav was an extraordinary warlike ruler who spent nearly his entire adult life leading military campaigns. Throughout his life, he fought both alongside and against the Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, a West Christian superpower of the Middle Ages with its capital in Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul. Some records preserved in Byzantine archives allow us to learn a little more about Sviatoslav the Brave. Here is a depiction of his meeting with Byzantine Emperor John I Zimisces. If you look closely, you'll see an inscription to the right of the figure, reading Sviatoslav. That's how his name was written in 10th century sources. It was likely derived from the Scandinavian name Sven, which was later Slavicized with the suffix Slav. Over time, Sven evolved into Sviat from the Slavic root meaning holy. The Byzantine historian Leo the Deacon, who personally saw Sviatoslav, left one of the few surviving eyewitness descriptions of his appearance. He was of medium height, neither very tall nor short, with bushy eyebrows, blue eyes, a snub nose, and a long mustache, but no beard. His head was completely shaved except for a lock of hair on one side, which signified noble birth. His neck was thick, his shoulders broad, and his body rather lean. He wore a white garment, cleaner than those of his men, and in one ear he wore a gold earring with a ruby and two pearls. Since he lived in the 10th century, no original portraits of him have survived. However, modern Ukrainian artists and historians specializing in the clothing of Kyivan Rus have created several reconstructions of how he might have looked. Fascinating, isn't it? The hairstyle and mustache resemble those later worn by Cossacks until the 18th century, yet his clothing is that of a Viking. A very striking look. We should also mention his family. His father was Knyaz Ihor, whose name comes from the Scandinavian Ingvar. When Sviatoslav was still a child, Ihor was killed while collecting tribute from the Drevlyans, and a confederation of tribes who lived in what is now Zhytomyr Oblast in Ukraine. He was executed in a particularly brutal manner. But Sviatoslav's mother was no ordinary woman. She was an extraordinary figure in her own right. Her name was Olga. That's the Slavicized form of the Scandinavian name Helga. She took a fierce and ingenious revenge for her husband's death. After surrounding the city of Iskorosten, today known as Korosteń, she demanded a ransom in exchange for lifting the siege. Her request seemed harmless, just 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each household. The town's people gladly agreed and brought her what she asked for. Then Olga gave a chilling order. She had pieces of a smoldering tinder tied to each bird and set them free. The birds flew back to their homes, and since the city was built mostly of wood, Iskorosten burned into flames and burned to the ground. Now that's what you'd call creative revenge. In truth, her vengeance involved even more fascinating details, and her life as a whole was full of remarkable events. I might write a separate story about her one day. A woman ruler in the 10th century was an extraordinary rarity for that time. So what's the lesson here, guys? Never make Ukrainian women angry. Trust me on that, just don't. After her husband's death, Olga ruled Kyivan Rus, and as the de facto sovereign for about 20 years, from 944 to 964. When Sviatoslav came of age, she passed power to him, and from that moment on, he spent nearly all his time leading military campaigns. Here's a modern painting. It shows Sviatoslav being seen off to war by his mother, Olga. And do you see whom Sviatoslav is holding? Look closely. That's his young son, Volodymyr. In time, he would become Volodymyr the Great. Before his reign, Rus was a pagan land. In 1988, Volodymyr converted Rus to Christianity. If you've ever been to Kyiv, you've probably seen his monument overlooking the Dnipro River. It was his personal symbol, the trident, Trezub, that later became the traditional coat of arms of Ukraine. Now let's return to the SOF flag. Across it, you can see the inscription in Ukrainian "Idu na vy," which can be roughly translated into English as "I march on you." This was the phrase Sviatoslav used to warn his enemies before battle, a declaration of fearlessness meant to intimidate the opponent. It was his way of saying, I don't need the element of surprise, even if you know I'm attacking, I will still defeat you. If you're familiar with British history, you might recall another Viking, William the Conqueror, who in 1066 won the Battle of Hastings and took over England. The Anglo-Saxons fought mostly as infantry, while William's forces included cavalry, giving him a decisive advantage. 100 years earlier, Sviatoslav the Brave had been the first ruler of Kyivan Rus to introduce mounted troops, revolutionizing military tactics in the region. Just a few centuries later, the tradition of these horsemen would evolve into Europe's knightly culture. Sviatoslav's constant drive for warfare and his innovative use of the army allowed him to greatly expand the influence of Kyivan Rus. On this map, the red area shows the territory of Rus at the time Sviatoslav came to power, while the orange area represents the lands he conquered within just a few years. Beyond subduing smaller tribes, he defeated several major states of the era, including the Volga Bulgars in today's Tatarstan, Russia, the Khazar Khaganate around modern Rostov region, Russia, and even reached as far as the Caspian Sea. Later, he turned west and waged war against the powerful First Bulgarian Empire, which at that time rivaled the Byzantine Empire itself. After one of his campaigns against the Bulgars in 972, Sviatoslav was returning home to Kyiv, traveling up the Dnieper River. Before several hydroelectric dams were built in the 20th century, the Dnieper had numerous dangerous rapids. These rapids posed serious obstacle. Near one of them, close to Khortytsia Island, today part of the city of Zaporizhia, nomadic Pechenegs ambushed him, and Sviatoslav was killed. He lived only about 30 years, but in that short time he achieved an extraordinary amount. At the site believed to be near his death in 2011, a fisherman accidentally pulled a sword into his boat. He handed it over to a museum. After restoration, historians determined it was a 10th century Carolingian style sword, engraved on the barrel in the name Ulbert. That's essentially the brand name of its maker, something like a Rolls-Royce or Ferrari of medieval swords. Lavishly decorated, it clearly belonged to a person of great status. In Ukraine, it's known as Sviatoslav's sword. Sviatoslav has become a symbol of boundless courage. Football fans of Dynamo Kyiv, especially the Ultras, chose Sviatoslav the Brave as their emblem. You can often see his image displayed in the stadium. The thing is, after the start of the Russian-Ukrainian war in 2014, Ukrainian football ultras volunteered en masse to join the army. Many of them became the backbone of the new modern, non-post-Soviet Ukrainian military. I think you already know the name of Denis Prokopenko. Before 2014, when he was still a student, he was one of the leaders of the Dynamo Kyiv Ultras movement. It was at the stadium that he got his call sign, Redis. The Azov movement has once grown into the Azov Corps, the Third Assault Corps, and the Kraken unit. All of them belong to what is known as the Azov family, a force that originally began with football ultras from various Ukrainian clubs. Ukrainian football fans have done an incredible amount to defend their country. Honestly, I didn't expect that a story about the Ukrainian Special Operation Forces flag would somehow lead us all the way to football. But let's get back to why we're really here, the patch raffle. Right now, you're witnessing something truly extraordinary, something that may never happen again. A combat patch from a Ukrainian Special Operation Forces soldier being offered as a raffle prize. That's just wow. When I first saw it on Rick's stream a week ago, it literally took my breath away. I couldn't believe my eyes. Don't just be witnesses, be part of it. Buy your tickets and increase your chances. This soldier gifted Rick the official flag and patch of the Ukrainian Special Operation Forces. These items cannot be raffled or given away. He also presented Rick with a valuable battlefield trophy, which will be auctioned later. And as the cherry on top, he offered his personal combat patch for this raffle. That alone shows how generous this man truly is. Unfortunately, the secrecy rules of the SOF prevent Rick and me from sharing many details that would help you understand just how remarkable this person really is. But I truly hope he gets to see how generous you all are as well. Rick has managed to bring together an incredible community from all over the world, people for whom nothing is impossible. Rollers, you're amazing.